Hey there, folks. This is Coach Rich, Endurance Nation. Thanks for joining me for our weekly coach chat. Whether you are an Endurance Nation member inside our private chat room, or you are watching this after the chat on YouTube, or you're listening to it as a podcast, welcome. Today is February 2nd, 2015. And for all you people stuck on trainers, last week was the Trainer Road tour of Landria. I don't ride a trainer. I'm in SoCal. I get outside. So, but on Strava, we've got our athletes on Strava, and so I saw lots of big cycling volume being put up last week, which meant lots of people on trainers. And so I figured I would do a video and a podcast to give you folks that are stuck on trainers and or folks who are fortunate enough to be cycling outside, just wrap on a bunch of cycling topics, okay? Stuff that I've spoken about locally with athletes, Ironman clinics, etc. I'm just going to give you a bunch of cycling knowledge here in one shot, okay? My first point about the bike, about a triathlon bike, is cycling is fundamentally different from running. Duh, no joke, right? But what I mean is cycling is non-impact. So it's much, much, much easier on your body than running. If you have a heart attack and you're laid up in the hospital and you get better and you get discharged and the doctor prescribes you an exercise routine, chances are he's going to put you on a stationary bicycle. Cycling is much, much lower risk than running, and therefore cycling should be the act of training for cycling should be very, very different from how we train for the run. Okay, and to summarize that, I would say that that your training on the bike can accommodate quite a bit more risk, specifically a very quick upward ramping of intensity and volume. You can ramp those things up much, much more quickly on the bike than you can on the run. So what a lot of triathletes do is either they come to the sport with a running background, or they are reading training advice, which is focused on the run, and they don't fundamentally understand how the bike is different from the run, and they try to apply those running principles to the bike. And the net is they spend a lot of time riding very slowly because they are afraid of riding fast on the bike. The time for you to start getting fast on the bike is the first time that you throw your leg over the saddle and start riding your bike, okay? Cycling is a much, much lower risk activity than running from a perspective of injuries that can be caused by riding a bicycle incorrectly, okay? Because if you think about it, you're inserting your body onto a jig, right? You know, like, so the frame is the same frame every day. The handlebars are in the same place every day. The saddle is in the same place every day. The pedals in relation to the saddle are in the same place every day. Your feet are nailed to those pedals. Those pedals are attached to straight cranks, crank arms. Those crank arms are attached to circles, and you pedal that in a circle. There's very little variation from day to day, and your body does the same. So the handlebar system, the frame system, the saddle system, the crank system, the pedals, all that stuff puts you in a position where you pretty much do the same activity. You can't really do that incorrectly. Now, you can be fit incorrectly, or you can ride so much in an incorrect position that you might get overuse injuries, but you'll get them. But in my experience, a basic well-fitting bike fit is pretty easy to achieve, and how to do that is beyond the scale of what I want to talk about tonight. Okay, but I would just like you to consider the fact that you're nailing your body on on your bicycle the same time, the same way every day. Your feet are nailed to pedals, pedals attached to cranks, cranks attached to circular chain rings. There's very little variability inside that system. All right. So there's very little technique involved in cycling relative to running, and certainly relative to swimming. Okay. Because there's just very little, opportunity for your body to make strange movements outside of this system that it's stapled to for a couple hours at a time, right? But the one area where there is a technique involved is the act of pedaling. So let me next talk about pedaling. I want you to imagine that you are looking at your bicycle from the drive side, and the pedal at the top is 12 o'clock. I don't know if I can do this like my right is your left, right? So top of the pedal stroke is 12 o'clock, then down to 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, right? So 12, 3, 6, 9. Let's now talk about what's going on with your body across that clock face. At the top of your pedal stroke from 11 o'clock to about 2 o'clock, you're transitioning from your leg not really doing anything for you towards I'm beginning to move my pedals across the top of the clock face to the power phase of the stroke, which is generally from about 1 or 2 to maybe 5 or 6 o'clock on the pedal stroke. Mostly, let's call it 1:30 to 4:30, right? That's where you're applying the most power to your pedals. There's some discussion about pedaling in circles and actually pulling up on the pedal stroke from, let's call it 7 to 11 or 7 to 12. My feeling, and having done some reading and other stuff, is that all the muscles in your legs are engineered for pushing off of things. Okay, think about it: running, jumping, walking. All those muscles are built for pushing off of something, off the earth, etc. If I engage my muscles from 8 to 12, pulling up on the pedal stroke, I'm engaging a set of muscles, my hip flexors, which are not really made to do a lot of work. Okay, day to day, I don't really force them to do a lot. They're not really engineered to be a powerful muscle. And so what I found is athletes who through power cranks, or thinking about it, athletes who try to apply power on the upward side of the pedal stroke, they consciously think about pulling up from 7 to 11. They work their hip flexors, and their bodies say, wow, my hip flexors are really tired, I'm not used to this. And your leg starts to rest a little bit on the power phase. So the net is, there's really no sense in thinking too much about bringing a muscle group into your pedal stroke that's not really designed to produce lots of power, because doing so, your body will compensate and take less power, or take power away from the power phase of your pedal stroke. The net is, this is how I want you to think about your pedal stroke. Okay, from 11 to 1 o'clock, imagine you are rolling a barrel. Okay, at 11 o'clock, you start pushing forward, rolling that barrel, and getting onto the power phase of your pedal stroke, which happens between 1 and 2. From 1 to 5, don't think about it. Just ride your bike. That's going to happen naturally. Okay. As you move from 5 or 5:30 to about 8 o'clock, imagine that you are scraping mud off the bottom of your shoe. So I am starting to engage my hamstrings from 5 to 8. So from 11 to 1, I'm thinking roll the barrel. 2 to 5 is going to happen. I'm not going to think about it. You know, I'm pedaling my bike. But then I start thinking about scraping mud from 5 to 8, and I'm starting to engage my hamstrings more in my pedal stroke. Now, this is very important, okay? If you have power on your bike and you start thinking about your pedal stroke, and you notice that when you think about it and when you think about applying power to more of the clock face, where in the past you've just been like, you know, a couple of pistons up and down, 1 to 5, 1 to 5, 1 to 5, and you're putting out 200 watts. And now when you're thinking about 11 to 1, 1 to 5, 5 to 8, you start putting out more watts. Those watts aren't free, okay? You're not magically making more power. What's happening is you are becoming more aware of the pedal stroke. You are applying more power across more hours of the clock face, but fundamentally, the ability to sustain that higher power output, that's a fitness adaptation, right? So there's nothing free, okay? Just because you're making more power, your body's doing more work, you're spreading that work out over more muscles, you know, that's great, but it's not free. You have to train you have to train your body to be able to sustain that power application across more of the pedal stroke. The net is that you simply increase your pedal awareness, and you can start to like manipulate, you know, like if you're on a bike for 5 hours, got nothing else to think about, you know, maybe as your quads get more tired, you start shifting over towards your hamstrings. You start thinking more about, you know, 5 to 8. But the 2 points I want to get across is, don't think so much about lifting on the pedal stroke from 8 to 11. Think of it as you are unweighting your non-pedaling foot. And second is, you're simply trying to apply power to more of the clock face, but then understand that if you do that and your power goes up, that power is not free. You have to train yourself to sustain that. Okay, next bit, spin ups. Let's talk about drills to help you work on your pedal stroke. Very, very simple drill. What spin ups are is you riding at a higher cadence until, so my normal cadence is 90. I dial it up to 95, 100, 105, 110, 120. I go up to where I start to feel myself bouncing on the saddle. I drop it down a tick, and I just ride at that higher cadence, okay? I stop, I upshift, relax, recover, whatever, and then I go back up. Now, you should be in a very light gear, almost as if your chain is not attached to your bike, okay? So very high gear, very low cadence. This is a technique exercise, not a fitness exercise. What's happening is, in order to pedal your bike, muscle A has to fire, and then muscle B, and then muscle C needs to come off the gas so that muscle A can do its thing. And so across all your muscles in both legs, things have to happen in a sequence, okay? Your body can like fake the funk when it's having to make those coordinated actions at 70, 80, 90 RPMs. But as you start increasing your cadence, muscle B doesn't start doesn't finish its contraction at quite the right time so that muscle A can do its work. And so that bouncing that happens, that's a little bit of, that's like, you know, your muscles are like bumping into each other, okay? So you want to put yourself right at that spot where you start bouncing in the saddle, and then just ride there at a high cadence, come off, rest, do it again, rest, do it again, do it again. And over time, very, very quickly, your body just learns the muscle coordination patterns so that A works with B, works with C. It learns this at higher cadence, and then it translates to a smoother pedal stroke. But more importantly, what all this stuff does is just simply make you aware of your pedal stroke. Another great exercise are one-legged drills. As you're riding, simply unclip one leg and pedal, and divide your pedal stroke into hours of the clock face. And so I'm riding with one leg clipped in, and for 10 pedal strokes, I'm thinking about roll the barrel, roll the barrel, roll the barrel. Then I relax. Now I'm thinking about scraping mud, scraping mud, scraping mud. Then I clip in with my left foot and I do the same thing over again. And now, and just, then I do it at high cadence. I do it at low cadence. And you're simply making your mind more aware of the pedal stroke, so that you're more aware of what's going on and you're more in control about how and where you apply your power across a pedal stroke. Let's talk body position. If you look at an experienced cyclist, there's very little movement above their waist. Okay, nothing above your waist makes the bicycle go that way. So all the movement happens from the waist down. So from the waist up, you're relaxed. Your arms aren't moving. Your body's not rocking side to side. Head's not moving. Arms are tucked in. Just think, the more relaxed and smooth I can make my upper body, the more resources I have to apply to my lower body, which is what makes my bike go fast. Okay. One of the drills I do is I will ride on the white line, and what I want to see is my bike is going in a straight line and my bike's not moving under me, right? So we've all ridden with people where they're going this way, but their bike's doing all this side to side stuff. Okay. That is a sign that they're putting effort into the bike that's doing something other than helping the bike go that way. They're doing strange body movements, which is not applying their power efficiently to the pedal stroke. So I want to be smooth, relaxed, upper body. I'm on that white line and my bike is tracking in a straight line. It's not going from side to side. All right. Let's talk cadence. So power on a bicycle is how hard you're pressing down on the pedals times how frequently you're pressing on those pedals. So it's force times cadence. And if I'm keeping my power the same and I drop my cadence, then I'm pressing harder on the pedals. As I press harder on the pedals, I start to have to engage my fast twitch muscle fibers, which are not good at the endurance game. And the net is that as endurance cyclists, we want to ride at a relatively high cadence, because that recruits our slow twitch muscle fibers, and slow twitch fibers are good at doing endurance-y type stuff. As we gravitate towards lower cadence equals a higher force, a contraction. I start to have to bring my fast twitch muscle fiber, or my fast twitch fibers on board. They're not very good at burning fat. They're not very good at going for a long time. What this means for you as a triathlete is, as you gravitate towards higher cadence cycling, you are saving a bit of your legs for your run. Higher cadence meaning what I like to see is between 85 to 95. 80 to 85 isn't necessarily bad, but sub 80, you start getting into a low cadence situation, which can have impact on the run. Another thing to consider, I like to think about it. I don't know, I don't really know if it's true, but if if our ideal running cadence is a cadence between 88 and 93 strides per minute, but I'm riding a half Ironman bike or an Ironman bike at 80 RPMs, I'm now having to get off the bike after having my legs go at this motion for, 3, 5, 6 hours at RPMs X, and I'm asking them to very quickly go at a much higher RPM. So theoretically, higher cadence makes it easier to transition, or higher cadence on the bike makes it easier to transition to higher cadence running when you get off the bike and you start running in your race. I don't really know if that's super valid. I like to think of cadence more as a tool to help save my legs for the run, rather than dial in a cycling cadence, which becomes a running cadence. Okay. Bike training. Well, the first thing I said is that the best time for you to start getting faster on the bike is the first time you swing your leg over the top tube and start riding your bike. You simply cannot, you can't start riding fast too soon. You're not going to hurt yourself unless you crash into things. But cycling is so fun. Cycling training and the risk that's associated with cycling from an overtraining standpoint, overtraining as a function of you going too hard too soon, it's so fundamentally different from run training that you really have to adopt a different perspective on risk, which is that cycling is very low risk relative to running. Second point is volume is overrated. Okay. I talked about this in great depth in an earlier podcast and earlier video, but the net is, I've had lots of experience and I've worked with a lot of athletes, over the years, and I've seen the make me faster results that come from having people ride their bikes really fast. And I've seen what happens when you try to make them faster by having them ride longer and longer and longer. And I simply got better results when I focused on riding really fast for short periods of time and making myself or making my athletes fast first, and then putting endurance on top of that. A corollary of that is that while you are making yourself a faster cyclist, you're also absolutely building endurance. You have much, much more endurance than you think you do. Okay. The story I like to tell is back in the day, when I started my local tri club, we had a girl, she showed up to one of our first rides, and she's about 5'1", 5'2", brand new bicycle, could barely, I don't even think she could clip into her bike for a couple weeks of riding with us. But we forced her to ride with our club, and we didn't let her put limitations or barriers with regards to distance, intensity. And within 3 months, she rode a century with our club. No athletic experience, not a super great athlete, but by riding relatively short, she developed the endurance to ride a much longer ride in only 3 months. Also, the flip side of that is don't be afraid to go big. Cycling is relatively low risk. It's non-impact. You would be surprised how long you can ride a bicycle, assuming that you're pacing yourself well while you're eating and drinking. So think of your bicycle as so your fitness is a cool stuff engine, and your bicycle is a cool stuff vehicle. And you put that engine on that vehicle, and you go do cool things with it. You sign up for that that fun century, or you show up for that, crazy climbing ride that your friends are doing, you will really surprise yourself with how much you can do on the bike when you don't listen, like when you don't let the limitations that other people put on themselves, when you don't let that translate into your limitations, if that makes sense. Just get on the bike and ride it, go that way for a long time, bring cash, bring a driver's license, cash, credit card, cell phone. If something happens, call a cab, take a cab home. That's a little extreme, right? But don't be afraid to go big. I still want to talk about braking, cornering, and a couple other things. But my next point is one of the unfortunate aspects of the triathlon culture is a lack of educating triathletes about group riding and the power of riding in a group, with a group, and adding a social component to their training. Triathletes live in a world where triathlon equals I swim, bike, run. There's no drafting allowed on race day. Therefore, I can't draft in my training. And therefore, I'm always riding solo, or I'm riding with people who aren't faster than me. And I'm not riding with more experienced cyclists who teach me how to bunny hop or change a flat, or what socks I should be wearing, all that stuff. So by riding with a group and riding with people who can teach you how to ride in a group, you open up opportunities for you to learn from more experienced cyclists, but more importantly, to add a social component to your bike rides. Okay. My Saturday rides, my Saturday morning rides are my Thursday night $5 pitchers of beer happy hour, right? I just have fun riding with my friends on Saturday, and 3 hours just goes like that, right? So learning how to ride in a group is a very, very, very valuable skill. Okay, braking, cornering, and going downhill quickly, safely. All right, braking. Okay, you are riding a straight line. You're coming up to a corner. What you're going to do first is brake. As you apply the brakes to your bicycle, your weight shifts forward, applying more weight to the front wheel, which increases the amount of traction that's available on the front wheel and decreases the amount of traction that's available on the back wheel. So the net is, my first key is that when you're braking, you should brake 70-30 front to rear. You should be applying more braking force to the front wheel, vice the back wheel. So in a straight line coming up to a corner, I have to brake. I brake 70-30 front to rear. Okay. Next, I look as far through the corner as possible. Okay. The reason is, if I'm looking 50 feet through the corner, the stick, the rock, the crack in the pavement that I see 50 feet away, I've got 50 feet to adjust my line. I have 50 feet to make a very small adjustment to my line that becomes 3 feet by the time I get to that rock. If I'm looking right down in front of me, I'm reducing the amount of time I have to fix the problem that I only just now saw, because I'm only looking 6 feet in front of me. Okay. So I'm looking as far through the corner as possible. Third, I'm choosing a line in that corner that gives me the most visibility and gives me the most time to react to the thing I can't see yet. Okay. I might not be necessarily choosing the faster line, but the way I ride my bike is I only go as fast as my ability to fix the problem that I don't see yet. And I choose a line which gives me the most visibility through that corner. So I can see, if I have a choice between a line that lets me see 70 feet or a line that lets me see 50 feet, I choose the 70-foot line, even though it might not be the tightest line. Does that make sense? Okay, so in a straight line coming up to a corner, I brake 70-30 front to rear. I come off the brakes and then I lean, backing up. Your bike, your tires have a finite amount of traction. That traction is being taken up by two components. One is slowing the bike down, and the second is keeping that bicycle from sliding out from under you. When your bike is upright, you have 100% of your traction available towards the act of braking. Again, bike, the weight shifts forward, more traction available on the front wheel, 70-30 front to rear. As the bike leans, now a portion of that traction is being taken up by keeping my bike from sliding out, okay? Which means I have less traction available for braking, which means I want to separate the act of braking and cornering whenever possible. So straight line into corner, I get all my braking done, 70-30, then I start leaning. I come off the brakes and I lean. I'm looking as far through the corner as possible. Inside pedal is up, outside pedal is down. That's green belt, okay? Brown belt is I'm waiting. I've got my weight on the outside pedal and I'm applying pressure to the inside handlebar, okay? So straight line, come up to a corner, 70-30, front to rear. I come off the brakes. I lean the bike. I look as far through the corner as I can. Inside pedal is up, outside pedal is down. Weight is on the outside pedal, and I'm pushing down on the inside handlebar. Black belt is I'm doing things like I'm lowering my center of, so I'm lowering my center of mass. I am I'm pointing my inside knee where I want to go, all that stuff, right? So, but what's key is separating the act of cornering from braking. If you do have to continue braking inside that corner, highly recommend that you brake with your rear brake, not your front brake. The reason is, and I should also say that recommend that you brake with one finger, not two. The reason is, if you see something that you don't like and you flinch and you grab with two fingers, you're more likely to lock up your wheels. One finger, not so much. But by braking gingerly with my rear brake, if I momentarily lock up that rear brake in a corner, that is savable. If you lock up your front brake in a corner, 9 times out of 10, the front wheel washes and you go down, and there's nothing you can do to fix it. So 70-30 front to rear until the bike is leaned over, and then you're very careful with braking with your rear wheel. You got to be super careful braking with your front wheel in a corner. So that's braking, cornering, downhill riding. I lift my butt off the saddle. So I shift my weight back. I come off the saddle a bit. So I'm gripping my saddle with my thighs. All I'm doing is I'm unweighting my saddle. Arms are loose, legs are loose, and I'm letting my body act as a set of shocks, right? So I lean back. I come off the saddle a little bit. I'm holding my saddle with the inside of my thighs. Weight is shift back, and I'm just loose, relaxed with my body. And sometimes you can think about squeezing your top tube with your knees. That can make your bike more stable. And then the question then is, how do I get better at going down hills quickly? In my experience, I've got about 200,000 miles between motorcycles and bicycles. If you grasp the fundamentals of braking and cornering, it gives you a toolbox with which you can solve problems. And the more experience that you have riding, the more you're better able to identify what rock, stick, branch, whatever, what do I really need to fix and what do I not need to fix. When you first start riding, everything is like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Over time, as you ride in more situations and you know what you're doing with regards to braking and cornering, your mind learns how to filter out all the stuff that it doesn't need to worry about. It focuses on the stuff that it needs to fix, and you've got the tools to fix it. So the key to going faster is to master the fundamentals of braking and cornering, which increases the amount of distance so if by developing more skills, I'm able to go faster in corners because I have more tools with which to solve the problem that I don't see yet around that corner, right? And then as I just expose myself to faster and faster speeds, what used to sketch you out at 30, now you don't get sketched out until 32, 34, 36, 45, 50 miles an hour, right? But you just get there by learning the fundamentals of braking and cornering, body position on the bike, and just exposing yourself to lots of different riding situations. And that's why I think it's so important for you to develop a social component to your riding, so that you will ride with people who will bring you outside of your comfort zone, who will show you new places. You can watch how Timmy handles his bike, and how he corners, how he takes his lines, and you can learn from that person. All right. I have some other stuff to talk about, but I've already been talking for like 40 minutes. So I'm going to stop it here. I'm going to look at my notes here and maybe make one more video podcast here in a couple weeks. But folks in podcast land, thanks for listening. Please check us out at endurancenation.us/join and consider creating a free 7-day trial. I'm going to stop the audio portion here and go inside and answer questions from my team in my chat room. Thanks. Any questions for me, folks? Got 16 people online. I was the additional stuff I was going to talk about was road bike versus tri bike, aero bars, power versus race wheels. There's just tons and tons of topics that I can cover in this. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop it here because I've been talking for long enough, and maybe I'll make this into a series. I know I can talk about tri-bike fit and all kinds of other stuff. Okay, so thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll get this up for the team later tonight. Thanks, folks. Bye.